Johan Santana has thrown the first no-hitter in New York Mets history.
No-hitters are rare. No-hitters are exciting. Even the best pitchers don't always throw no-hitters. And even teams that have some of the best pitchers, it takes a really long time to throw a no-hitter. Today on Crafting the Call, we are talking about no-hitters. My name is Josh Suchon, play-by-play announcer for the Albuquerque Isotopes.
And I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Lansing Lugnuts. Sometimes the best broadcasters don't have even a chance to call a no-hitter. Josh, how many of you called?
0, a big donut.
One day. But until that day, we're going to make sure that you are prepared, because we're going to talk about what should a broadcaster do when you've got a no-hitter in progress, and how do you finish that call?
How many no-hitters have you called, Jesse?
6.
6?
I've called 6.
Stealing all of them.
In 2013, the Lansing Lugnuts were no-hit 3 times and could have been no-hit 3 further times. That got us a write-up in the Associated Press. I also called the no-hitter without seeing it. It was my annual recreation broadcast with sound effects, and it was a no-hitter, so I got to congratulate the pitcher for throwing great pitches that I didn't see. And I've called a couple since then.
So the Albuquerque Isotopes, for fans who don't know, we play in what I think is the most hitter-friendly environment in all of professional baseball. It's the same altitude as Denver, roughly 5,200 feet. The dimensions are huge because of the altitude, which means that there's lots and lots of gaps for bloopers and everything else to drop in. Plus, it's hot and dry, so the infield allows a lot of infield singles. Plus, it's very windy as well. Not only have I not called a no-hitter, Jesse, there has never been a no-hitter in the 21 baseball seasons at Isotopes Park. Nobody has taken a no-hitter into the 9th inning. No one has taken a no-hitter into the 8th inning at Isotopes Park. The closest that I've ever come is twice on the road, combined no-hitter going into the 9th, and both times the leadoff hitter of the inning broke it up.
So I think you understand what it's like to be a Mets fan, because it had been year after year after year after year that the Mets had not thrown a no-hitter while watching everybody else have this pleasure, have this joy, have this thrill. And then finally, Johan Santana was the very first to do it. We'll get you yours someday. But until we can get you yours, let's vicariously enjoy and break down some others that we have found.
Yeah, so I have seen a few in person. In particular, Nolan Ryan's 6th no-hitter. I was at the Oakland Coliseum that day, and I will never forget the day in late June of 1990 when I was home in Pleasanton, California, watching the Oakland A's play the Toronto Blue Jays.
1 out left here. 5-0 A's. Swung on. High drive. Center field. Dave Henderson signaling. It's mine. It's mine. It is. And it's a no-hitter for Dave Stewart in the Skydome this June 29th, 1990. The 5th no-hitter in the history of the Oakland Athletics. And it comes 6 years and 9 months to the day since the last one pitched by Mike Warren in 1983.
There was a short chant, Pedro, Pedro, as they did in Boston in the '86 World Series to try and taunt Strawberry. And now they're doing it to Guerrero, hoping to distract him, hoping to upset him, hoping perhaps to make him try too hard. Fernando ready, and the strike 2 pitch is hit back to the box, dribbling to second. Samuel on the bag, throws to first, double play. Fernando Valenzuela has pitched a no-hitter at 10:17 in the evening of June the 29th, 1990. If you have a sombrero, throw it to the sky.
I love this moment in history, Jesse, because 2 no-hitters on the same day. Again, I remember watching the first game with my dad at home. And then at some point around the 7th or 8th inning, I was in my room and my dad said, "Hey, Fernando Valenzuela is throwing a no-hitter. Both of those games happen to be televised by ESPN. They got back-to-back no-hitters. Of course, I watched the A's game on television, June 29th, 1990. And to me, Jesse, I love being able to break down this because Bill King is who I listen to the most. And then Vin Scully, of course, has had the biggest impact on all of us. And their styles are completely different, which we just heard with those last two calls. And so I want to start with you and how you compare and contrast those two styles.
I would advise broadcasters to actually call it more like Bill than like Vin, because it's difficult to call a game in the Vin Scully way without sounding like an imitation. You can't put together the words. Vin Scully uses complete sentences. So we've got the taunting of Pedro Guerrero, which we hear. We can hear a fan taunting Pedro as that pitch is coming in. And then we've got it all finished. But let's set aside Vin for a moment. Bill King, everything is short and quick, right? It's short, quick phrases. It's his, right? He's calling for it. It's mine, it's mine. And so we watch the entire fly to Henderson. We travel with it on its journey. He celebrates. There's the part of me which, after calling games for a Blue Jays affiliate, where I go, oh, they would not like for you to call it the Skydome. It's Skydome. Now, Rogers Center. However, Bill traveling there and celebrating it, that's a call that I think you can learn so much from and say, you can try to call it the Bill King way. And then when we get to Vin, where it's immediately summed up in terms of throw your sombrero to the skies, that's a line that's going to stick with you for a while. It's evocative. It immediately captures everything. But aren't we stuck on the fact that he immediately references the time? Here's the time of day that this no-hitter is completed. What stands out to you?
So the thing about Bill King is that he became a legend in the Bay Area for calling football and basketball. That's where fans know him. And the more that I study Bill King now, I realize that as a baseball broadcaster, he's bringing his football and his basketball onto the baseball diamond. So when I heard you say, Jesse, short, quick phrases, I'm thinking of him calling basketball, right? Passes to the right wing, bounce pass into the post, kick out, like those types of short phrases. I hear his basketball. I hear him saying Cliff Branch, wide left, Bolitnikov, slot right, I formation, whatever. Those short, quick phrases. And I think that's just who Bill was. And I think that he was always just the master of coming up with words. He wanted details. He wanted to tell you when the last no-hitter was before Dave Stewart's right then and there. I love the way that as the ball is in the air, he is telling us that Dave Henderson is underneath it, that he's calling for it. Those are some of the favorite things that I like to say in my own broadcast is, that a player is waving his arms, that a player has his hands out wide, whatever it is that the player is doing. I appreciate those things. And let's also not forget, Bill was doing that game on radio. The television has been added. And in the case of Vin's calling that game on television. And, Vin is evoking what he heard just a few years before in the World Series, the chants of Darryl. I also appreciate how Vin doesn't panic on that last call. There's a lot of things that are happening. When the ball gets by the pitcher back in 1990, it was usually a hit. There wasn't shifts back then, but Juan Samuel is there, even the way he says at the bag and then the throw to first, he says no double play a moment later. You can really get tripped over your words in that moment, Jesse. And Vin, calm as ever, delivers it and finishes his no-hitter call.
These are two different strategies to avoid getting tripped up by your words. And it's the short, quick phrases allows you to process each step, right? It allows you to say, here's the swing. Here's a fly ball. It's to center. Outfielder's under. Calls. Catches. Because you're keeping things short, you can react if something goes haywire. For Vin, there's the processing that goes on. He watches, he sees, he lets his brain mull it over, and then he takes you through it with the larger scope. It's hard to talk. It's really hard to put your mouth and your brain on the same wavelength. And these are two different strategies to handle that with. And let me add in this, because we're going to be talking about this an awful lot. Your heart is palpitating rapidly. A no-hitter builds that tension, and you realize that you've got the chance to call it. when you and I broke down Vin calling Sandy Koufax's perfect game, something that is still stuck with me is Vin realizing this is special for Sandy. I'm calling this for Sandy. And then the recording is pressed, as he always did, for the 9th inning to give to that pitcher. There's that feeling that this is something special, and therefore the broadcast matters. And so with that added feeling of adrenaline that the broadcaster has to feel, how do you manage that? And how do you channel it in the right direction in order to finish that call?
I love that. I love all of that. And I want to defer to you because, again, there's twice that I felt that heart pounding going into the 9th inning. And my brain starts thinking, okay, what are the things that I want to do? I want to reset the infield. I want to reset the outfield. I want to give the day. I want to give the timestamp. I want to make sure that I want to make sure that 20 years from now, if someone tunes into the top of the 9th inning, they know exactly everything that's happened, that I don't have to go set it up for them because I did it in the moment. So what are those things that you do in order to control your heart rate?
Before we get there, let me talk about the defense, because the defense is a Vin philosophy. Mm-hmm. In the 9th inning of a no-hitter, potentially even perfect game, Vin Scully always gave every single defensive player because they matter right now. It is they who brought us to this point. So reset on defense. So you even thinking about that brings you into the land of Scully to say, let's give the larger scope to understand that this is about more than just the man on the mound working with his catcher. For me, what helps settle me down is seeing everybody else. Because if I start thinking entirely of myself and trying to make my words perfect, the words are necessarily going to become imperfect. When I was a young broadcaster and I found that a certain person was listening into a broadcast who I really cared about, then I micromanaged my words, and therefore the words stopped being natural. They necessarily were unnatural because I was thinking about them too much. And you just can't think. You have to call. And with a no-hitter, you worry so much about, can I make my words right? What am I going to say when it's finished? When in this moment, you can either go by Vin or you can go by Bill King and just stay nice and short and follow it every step along that path.
Okay, so that's an example of a no-hitter being completed. The next sequence of clips that we're going to listen to and watch are what happens when someone is on the doorstep of a no-hitter but falls short again and again and again.
Ready, here's the 2-2 windup. A swing and a bouncer to second. Big hop over.
Incredibly, Toronto's Dave Stieb lost 2 no-hitters with 2 outs in the 9th on consecutive starts in September of 1988.
A swing and a shot down the right field line at the base hit. And there goes another no-hit bid for Dave Stieb.
1 year later, Stieb had a no-hitter and a perfect game. Again, with 2 outs in the 9th.
Holy cow, he broke it up with 2 outs. I don't believe it.
Finally, the following season, Steve's ship came in on the banks of Lake Erie.
Into right field. He has got a no-hitter for Dave Stieb. The long frustration is finally over. The first in Toronto Blue Jay history recorded here in Cleveland this afternoon.
But Dave Stieb facing the last out of the inning.
Yeah, Jerry Brown again high in the strike zone. Hit pretty hard. It was a line drive shot into right field, but it came virtually right at Junior Felix.
And you don't think everybody on the field knew that the pressure was on them, let alone Pat Borders, who was calling the pitches. But again, to bring out the point that we were talking about earlier, there really wasn't a ball that was a questionable ball, one that maybe you could say might have been a base hit. Aside from the strikeouts, a few easy fly balls and some pop flies. Watch Steve's reaction.
He
on
knew
this
it was
fly
well
ball.
hit,
Yeah.
and then the relief seeing where it was going. Finally, it was over.
mean, we talked about how long the Mets had to wait. Dave Stieb, this is inexorable, man. How painful is this? And if you're a Blue Jays fan, you know how great he was. You know how much this meant. He could have been utterly historic if you'd finished all of these. And to finally finish that one, to have his no-hitter, it makes the call feel much more than simply calling a 27th out.
Yeah, the word finally, Dave Stieb gets his no-hitter. And you think about, I try to put myself in the position of the broadcaster, okay? And so Dave Stieb, a bad hop, a brutally bad hop is what spoils a no-hitter. Then his next start, here he is once again. And you think about what's going through your mind in the ninth inning and the words that you start to try to put together about redemption and one start later and all of that. And then once again, Jesse, with 2 outs, you have this just blooper of like a fluke base hit. And now the next year, and he's about to throw a perfect game, which is going to redeem these 2 lost no-hitters. And then we hear Phil Rizzuto. Holy cow. Oh, you like your heart breaks for Dave Stieb. And then he finally does throw the no-hitter. And he gets that redemption, finally, that word. And I almost think that finally is the word for everybody. It's the word for Dave Stieb. It's the word for Blue Jays fans. It's the word for his teammates. It's the words for the broadcasters. It's finally we can all rejoice for what this incredible pitcher has accomplished.
The big idea that I want to get at here is a broadcaster fails in calling a no-hitter when the broadcaster thinks too much about the broadcaster. But Vin Scully succeeded when he called it for Sandy. And when you're watching these other calls, right, Bill King celebrating with the whole A's team in Toronto and chronicling that, or Fernando Valenzuela, throw your sombrero in the air, the Mets finally having their no-hitter. When you finish this no-hitter call for Dave Stieb, this isn't about you. This isn't about your words. This is Dave's because he's deserved it and he finally gets it. And so for you as the broadcaster, what do you matter anymore? You were talking specifically for him and with him, and every single fan watching knows exactly the feeling that you were all sharing in that moment.
Okay, let's get to another really interesting no-hit bid going into the ninth inning, because sometimes they get broken up on bloopers, bad hops. Sometimes it's clean singles. And then sometimes something happens that immediately leads to sports talk show fodder.
We're ready to go now. Pitch on the way to Ben Davis. A chopper to second. Got to hurry up with it. No play. A base hit. Infield hit on the bunt for Ben Davis. How do you like that? I'll tell you what. From a macho standpoint, a lot of guys won't like that.
Nope.
To lay down a bunt when everybody's back and get a base hit and ruin a no-hitter will not go well in the fraternity of grown-up baseball players. But the hit's on. Davis at first. Here's Bubba Trammell.
But I'll tell you what, and Bruce Bochy will defend him by saying,
oh, sure,
I got a 2-0 game here. I want to get a guy on. I bring the tying run to the plate. I get a bomb. I get a run here. I get a run in that. If I can tie this thing up, I can win the game. I don't care about how he gets a hit. I want a guy on.
Can we talk about how beautiful that is? It's so pure broadcastery to say, he's on, and here's Bubba Trammell. All right, here's what we think. Here's what could be thought. And now here's the next batter.
So that's Jerry Coleman, who's doing play-by-play. And then that's Ted Leitner. Those two work together forever. And I like the banter right away, right? Jerry misses the call at the beginning. He says a blooper instead of a bunt right away.
Yeah, it's not a chopper, Jerry.
Right. I mean, Jerry, I love Jerry. I actually had a conversation with Jerry when I was in college that was profound, that changed my life, that I will always remember the words. And for all of his mistakes, he was actually really, really good at play-by-play. And I think that his mistakes kind of made him charming, but that's another story. Yeah, this is a 2-0 game. Really, I mean, we could get into the philosophy of whether or not this is a good play or a bad play. But the point of our show, Jesse, is how to approach this from a broadcasting standpoint. And I really like how Jerry just said, how do you like that? Kind of opening up the door for Ted Leitner, who's not a former player, not a former coach. It's another broadcaster. I like that the word that Jerry used was macho. In the macho world of baseball, I think it's a smart choice of a word to use because it immediately gets to the heart of baseball players and how there's all these unwritten rules that they like to think that they should enforce and not enforce. And then I just like how immediately they bring up it's a 2-0 game. This brings the tying run to the plate. Yes, he's got a perfect game going, but this puts the tying run to the plate.
I'm going to connect this immediately to the no-hitter jinx. And here's why. Because the idea of jinxing a no-hitter is on the bench. It's in the dugout. Now, it's come up to the broadcast booth, but it always started in the dugout. You don't talk to the pitcher. You don't mention it. Nobody talks about it. Leave the pitcher alone. And then people brought it up to the booth. Jerry is bringing something into the booth because he remembers it. He was in the dugout. He understands baseball culture. And so he can discuss. And I love that notion of this is what they're going to talk about in the dugout. This is what they're going to talk about in the bench. So let's bring this up on the air. Let's throw this at Ted as we move onward with that. And I do think that as a broadcaster's responsibility, there's something different in saying, I think he shouldn't have bunted, than saying, well, this is going to be something that they'll talk about in the dugout.
What I also think can change how you frame this discussion. This was a Padres home game. So the crowd is very excited, right? They are cheering. They are cheering that the perfect game has been broken up. They are cheering that the tying run is coming to the plate, that their team was not no hit, perfect game. And I think that's much different than if that game was in Phoenix. Imagine the boos that would be cascading down from then Bank One Ballpark, down toward Ben Davis, down toward the Padres dugout. You might have people throwing things, and the camera would definitely be showing the fans booing, right? And I think that you might have a much different type of reaction than the celebration that we finally got a hit.
I think that there are a couple of different steps to go through too. I think that there's a large percentage of people who might not have heard about the unwritten rule, don't bunt to break up a perfect game / no-hitter. That's something that a broadcaster needs to first come to before you can take the next logical step. Well, what do you think about this? And so we have got a number of different ways to get at this for the broadcaster to say, hey, let's address this right now. What do they think about it? So yes, I totally agree that the atmosphere changes the mood of the broadcast. And we've got the Padres broadcast breaking down a Padre, breaking up a perfect game. And now what is going to be thought about that? How do we move on from it? The whole addressing of unwritten rules, the whole saying, here is something that you might not know this, but in the dugout, this is something that would cross a line for certain people. I think that how you address it, how you bring it up. I'm glad that you and I are discussing this right now.
So here's the other part too. Again, we just listened to the Padres broadcast. And so it's natural that they're going to take the side of their player and what he did. If we were listening to the Diamondbacks broadcast of this, it might be a completely different story. The Diamondbacks TV crew might be focused on the reactions inside the dugout. And maybe there's players where you can tell they're pissed. They are shooting daggers with their eyes toward Ben Davis. Maybe they're pointing at him. Maybe they're yelling at him. Maybe they're just shaking their heads dismissively. And I almost feel like sometimes there's a pressure, Jesse, to basically take the side of your team, right? If you're a Diamondbacks fan, Diamondbacks fans were probably furious. Those who know this unwritten rule, they're probably furious at Ben Davis. They're probably screaming and yelling and calling him all sorts of names inside their homes, wherever they're watching this. And I think that sometimes there's the pressure as the broadcasters of that team to kind of lean into what the fans are thinking. I think it takes a lot of guts if you were the Diamondbacks analyst, play-by-play announcer, to say, you know what? I know there's a lot of people that aren't going to be happy about that, but the truth is he just brought the tying run up to the plate.
So let me follow up with you on this, because there's one avenue to go down, which is to say, here's what I think. There's a second avenue to go down, which is let's look at their faces, let's look at their reaction, and let's explain to you why they're reacting in this way. Or for me, if there's a call that my team, that my players or my coach hates, I will talk about their reaction to it. I will describe them barking, or I will describe them whatever they're doing to voice their displeasure, to show their displeasure. It therefore does not come from me. It comes from them. And therefore, I am not casting a value judgment on the umpire's call unless I've got a replay and I can say, the replay shows this. In this spot, this is a pure matter of opinion. And so I do think that it takes the right broadcaster in terms of how you express it and what direction you go down. Let me go right back to the very start. Remember, we were talking about Vin Scully and Bill King. What words do you use? How do you express those words? Well, this is one where your words need to be very well chosen in terms of how do you share what your thoughts are in a situation that during the game and after the game, your words are going to be magnified, especially since there's a perfect game, so everybody is watching you.
And as you say that, Jesse, it makes me think that you don't need to have a hot take immediately.
No.
You can save it for another batter or two. You can save it for the post-game show. That's the point of post-game shows, is to get into this. That you can just stay in the moment about what happens next, because you kind of have to do that. So, and this is more for an analyst than it is for the play-by-play announcer, but there's certainly plenty of times. Marty Brenneman, after the episode we watched with Marty would probably tell you exactly how he felt about that, right? And he's not going to be shy about telling you how he felt about that.
What direction do you go? Because my direction would be, I would describe everybody's reaction and I would describe the situation. So I would describe both points of view. It is a 2-0 game. Now the tying run is coming up to home plate. The infield is playing back. It's a bunt single. Meanwhile, they're shouting out, or we see their expressions because here's what they're upset about. And therefore, after describing everything, I would move on. What would you take?
I agree. I don't want to make it seem like I'm always agreeing with you just for the sake of agreeing with you. But that said, I do think it's not just the safe choice, but the smart choice to describe what other people are doing. I especially do that when I call basketball. I don't usually get into saying like, that call was missed or something like that. I'll say the bench can't believe there was no foul or something like that, or the crowd wanted to travel. And when it comes to different plays like this, whether or not it's an unwritten rule that may or may not be broken, whether or not it's a safe or out call that's disputed, I lean into this is what the players are doing. I'll describe, right in the face of the umpire, or here comes the manager, or he's being held back, or hands on their hips in frustration, different things like that can convey they thought it was different than what was called. And then I'm looking at my monitor that's here in this broadcast booth in Oklahoma City. And then I'll start to say, all right, well, that's how the umpire called it. We get the benefit of a replay. And let me see what I witnessed on this replay. And now let me, describe it to you or something like that. So I just think that it's it's just the better way of doing it. Describe what others are doing, because this goes back to me as a journalist too. I'm not the story. The story is what's happening out there.
With your journalistic background, therefore, have you thought about, would you say the words no hitter while you're calling a no hitter?
100%. Yes. I'm a firm believer that you need to say it. I think that you also need to try to figure out different ways of saying it too. I don't want to say no hitter every time, because then I'm so aware of the broadcaster jinx that it almost feels like I'm trolling somebody if I continue to say no hitter. But also in general, I always try to think of what's the number of different ways that I can say the same thing. What's 7 different ways that I can describe a ground ball to the shortstop? Well, what's 7 different ways that I can just say that there's a no hitter? I can say that they haven't had any base runners. I can say the only base runner has been a walk. I can say that through 6 2/3 innings, he's yet to give up a hit. There's a lot of different ways that I can say no hitter without saying no hitter. But I'm absolutely of the belief that it is literally your job to tell people what is happening, and you need to do it.
Yeah. Which goes along with this. It is your job to say, here's what is happening in this spot. Ben Davis has bunted to break up Curt Schilling's perfect game bid. Here is what is happening. Here is why. Here is the fallout. And here's Bubba Travel.
All right. Well, again, not all no-hitters are created equally. Sometimes you get to a unique way to finish off a no-hitter, as we're going to see in this next one.
Full count, runner on the move. Alvarez to Tuiasosopo. He got him, struck him out. 9 no-hit innings, but no no-hitter yet. Henderson Alvarez has gone 9. The Tigers don't have a hit, but Miami doesn't have a run. To the bottom of the 9th in Miami. But you know what?
He's going to get to the plate if Stanton scores.
If you're going to celebrate a no-hitter and not be able to do it from the mound, you might as well be able to do it from the on-deck circle. So here's Dobbs against Pukonen. Bases loaded, 2 outs, bottom 9, a no-hitter in the balance. Dobbs check swing, it gets away. Here comes Stanton. It's a no-hitter. Henderson Alvarez. Miami wins it. One of the strangest finishes you'll ever see. Results in the 5th no-hitter in Marlin history.
Rich, one of the most unique celebrations you're ever going to see.
How many pitchers have celebrated a no-hitter coming from the on-deck circle?
What a way to cap off 2013.
I think that's just sensational call. That is Rich Waltz on play-by-play. I'm almost positive that's Tommy Hutton who is providing the color commentary. I love the way they end the 9th. He has not allowed any hits, but no hitter yet. I think Rich Waltz is fabulous there, Jesse.
Yes, set it up in the top half. Then in the bottom half, they know he can't bat. It's bases loaded. It's 2 outs. It's a tie game. You're either winning or you're going to extras. And so they have set it up beautifully. He could celebrate in the on-deck circle. And it's a tough play to call. We've got a check swing and the ball gets away. And they're right on it. I think that Rich gets in front of the call, which allows him to hammer it when it's right there. It's beautiful. It's really gorgeous broadcasting.
Yeah, the way that he says, wild pitch, and then just immediately Henderson Alvarez, the no-hitter, Marlins win, lays out, and then comes back with one of the strangest finishes you'll ever see for a no-hitter. I had forgotten about this play, Jesse, until we started to research and put together these clips. And I love that we have this so that we can get into the mindset of how Rich Waltz did it and how we might do something similar.
And to finish 2013, this is the case where it's imperative for the broadcaster to say no hitter. It is so important that you lay things out right here. Here is what he has done, and here's what they have to do in order to clinch the no-hitter. Here's the winning run. It's a no-hitter. We finished 2013. Henderson Alvarez was with my 2009 Lansing Lugnuts. He was on the mound for the very first game of them that I ever called. It's opening day. He's 18 years old. So I got to see very young Henderson Alvarez. We hung out together. His English was not great. We could still communicate. So I got to see him throughout that year. He was pitch clock before there was a pitch clock. He would just get the ball and throw. He would go out in the outfield and they tell him, stop making diving catches out here during batting practice. Your arm is too good. We need you healthy. Just a singular individual who wore his joy on his sleeve. And so, of course, this weird spot could only happen to him. Walk off so you celebrate with the winning run, and then you go right back and turn around and you celebrate with your pitcher. It's so cool.
I love the stories that you have of him, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so special what we do in the minor leagues is being able to get to know these guys when they're young and when they're still learning the game and when they're still learning some of the lessons of what it means to be a professional and just the joy that they have in playing the sport, and then being able to watch them in a moment like that And man, I'm picturing what Henderson Alvarez's heart was going through when he's in the on deck circle, right? Where knowing that he's not going to bat no matter what because of the situation, maybe they've already told him, look, you're not going out for the 10th inning. And so it's kind of now or never. Also, I think about the pressure that his teammates are under. Like, we have to score a run for this guy so that he can have his no-hitter. And the pressure for the Detroit Tigers, about we don't want to have a walk-off against us that leads to a no-hitter.
Hey, Luke Peconin, send us to the 10th for crying out loud.
Okay, so we've had a lot of fun looking back at some no-hitters and near no-hitters. But now, Jesse, you're on deck. Are you ready?
So I asked you what you would do with the no-hitter jinx. Would you say it? And I did not give you my answer because I just had the chance to call a no-hitter. So we actually get to see what my answer is in real life, not theoretical, in practical.
Okay, so Jesse told me that he threw a no-hitter, and I have intentionally not watched it. I've avoided clips on social media. He sent me the YouTube link, and I said, I do not want to watch this until we are recording. I want my first reaction to be genuine as we are recording. But I do have 2 questions for you before we start watching this, because we have talked a lot here on Crafting the Call with Vin Scully describing Sandy Koufax and looking back at Marty Brennaman. And I'm curious how much of Crafting the Call and what we have discussed was in your mind going into the 9th inning compared to I still need to be Jesse and not Vin Scully or Marty Brennaman.
I was like, shoot, Josh and I haven't recorded the How to Call a No-Hitter episode yet. What am I going to do here? No, I was thinking about all these different philosophies that you and I have discussed about when to let it breathe, what to focus on in each spot, how to talk about it after it's clinched. What do you do then? Yes, you and I have come to a lot of different broadcasting realizations because we are learning as we do each of these episodes. But the only way to actually get better is to actually do it. So we'll see how I did, and I'll try to do better the next time.
One last question before we start. At what point in the game did you really start thinking, no hitter just might happen tonight? I need to make sure that I'm ready for it.
Okay, I want you to put a number of fingers below the camera view of what inning you think it would first occur to you. And I'm going to hold my hand up in the air, or perhaps hands, and we'll compare. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3. 5th inning.
5th inning. 5th inning, because that's when the AP News alert would go out.
That's
the
right.
end of the 5th inning. That's when the AP News alert would go out. You're more than halfway there.
So now that we've set the stage, Lansing Lugnuts, Cedar Rapids Colonels. The Colonels collected 20 hits in Game 1. They collected 13 hits in Game 2. It is now Game 3 on a thirsty Thursday in Lansing, Michigan.
Eight runs, 13 hits, no errors for the Lugnuts. No runs, no hits, no errors for Cedar Rapids. Top of the 9th inning, lefty Colton Johnson on the hill. Harry Olivar Cespedes due up. J. Harry wears number 5. Ricardo Olivar wears number 11. Rebel Cespedes wears number 22. Add them together. That's the answer to tonight's trivia question, 38. Colton Johnson wears number 41. 41 minus 38, the number of outs that Colton Johnson is looking for here in the 9th inning to sew this one up. There have been 3 no-hitters in Lansing Lugnuts franchise history. Johnson against Harry, 0 for 3. A strikeout looking, a ground out to second, a fly to left. A first pitch swinger. The pitch. He swings and it's a fly ball out to right. It's shallow. Batista Jr. down the line to make the catch. One gone.
All right, I'm going to start off after this right away. I love that you said that he's a frequent first pitch swinger, or whatever description you used. I've started to do that more and more as I notice it. And I think that it immediately just gets the listener alert I know that mentally it gets me alert. This guy likes to swing at the first pitch. Everybody be ready. So you're right on it there. Yeah, anything else you want to add so far?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, let's get back to it then. One pitch, one out, the ninth.
And now Ricardo Olivar.
2 more to go, that's all.
That's all.
25 complete.
Ricardo Olivar, the #1 catching prospect in the Minnesota Twins organization. 0 for 2 with the walk. Right-handed batter. The lefty offers. Starts him off with a called strike. 8-0 Lugnuts. Here it is. Line drive left field. Johnny Butler in. Makes the catch. 2 gone. And now here comes the Midwest League Player of the Month for April. Rubel Cespedes, 0 for 3 today with a ground out, a strikeout, and a flyout.
How many really tough plays were there defensively to this point?
3. 2 sterling efforts by the third baseman and 1 by the second baseman.
Okay. All right.
Here's why I wanted to wait.
Okay.
For each batter in this 9th inning, I wanted to say one specific thing about them. For Jay Harry, all I got out was that he's a first pitch swinger, and that's all that I needed to. With the second batter, top catching prospect. With this third batter, I'm getting it out as soon as possible. He was the player of the month for the league in April. I was thinking, if you're watching this and this is the first time that you're tuning in, let me just introduce these guys with this one quick bullet point.
I like that philosophy a lot.
Lefty to lefty. 2 outs, nobody on. 8-0 Lugnuts. Here's the pitch. Out of fastball, called a strike on the outside corner. At 0-1. Strike 2 called. Time granted to Cespedes. 24 years ago today in Lugnuts franchise history, Scott Dunn of Clinton perfect game Lansing. Tonight, 1 out away from a no-hitter. The Lugnuts' Colton Johnson to the Colonels' Rubel Cespedes. At 0-2, fouled back.
These fans, man, they know it. Great baseball fans here in Lansing. 1 more strike to go.
26 outs recorded. No runs, no hits for the Colonels. Cespedes waits. 0-2. Swing and a miss. It's over. Colton Johnson completes the 4th no-hitter in Lugnuts franchise history. Jake Garland started it with 5 hitless. Grant Judkins went 2 2/3. Johnson the final 4 outs. They give a golden chain to the Lugnuts who hit home runs here. Well, it was the chain of pitchers that stopped a Cedar Rapids team that had collected 33 hits in the first 2 games of the series, and they make history.
How about that, man? Cedar Rapids had erupted the first 2 games of this series. 7 runs, 13 hits yesterday, 15 runs, 20 hits on Tuesday. Jesse, we looked at each other halfway through the game and said, oh my goodness, wouldn't it be something if Lansing could no-hit these guys with Jake Garland rolling? Well, they did it. What a different night. What a great pitching performance from Garland, Judkins, and Johnson.
Let's start with this. That was a very quick 9th inning. You did not have a whole lot of time to wax poetic and say a bunch of things. What were some of the things that were on your mind to potentially say that you basically never got a chance to say because it was such a quick inning?
I got everything out that I wanted. I said every single thing that I wanted. And I'll tell you a story from before and a story from after. But before I get into these two stories, Adam Jackson, my broadcast partner, is so big with numbers. And he had just asked a trivia question earlier in the game. What's the only number between 1 and 40 that has not been retired by any Major League Baseball team? The answer was 38. And we're entering this ninth inning. And I quickly added up the uniform numbers. And I thought, oh, this is a way that I can poke at him. 41 minus 38. That's 3 outs away. And their uniform numbers add up to 38. Oh, this is going to be a great wink at him that I'm doing his numbers silliness. This is fun. So that put me in the proper mood of, hey, keep it light, keep it fun. I had looked earlier in the day at the Today in Lugnuts baseball history. I saw that we got perfect gamed. I thought, well, that's a funny little thing. It's not great for our history, but maybe I'd want to share that at some point. And so I slid that in. I'm not even sure if I slid it in successfully. I just said it when the batter called time. But aside from that, there was nothing else that I wanted to say. I wanted to introduce, here are the batters, maybe, and in fact, as the clip rolled forward, and that's where I clipped it off right there, the next thing that I talked about was the pitcher who finished it, who had missed all of 2022 and 2023 due to injury. Maybe I talk about him. But I'm actually satisfied with the information that was shared there. Now, quickly, Josh, these two stories. The story before, I'd called a no-hitter to end 2022. And when I look back on it, I was tense. And you can hear how tight I am and how tight the call is. So I start to get tight once again in the 5th inning because this is just so cool. Can they throw a no-hitter? Adam gets the 7th and the 8th after I call the 5th and the 6th. I wrap up the 6th. He calls the 7th and the 8th with such glee, as in, here's the pitch, swing and a miss, 5 outs away. There's just such thrill and joy for him. And I'm going, I have never heard a broadcaster call a no-hitter like that. There's the folks who feel the jinx. There are the folks who get nervous. There are the folks who are calling it for the pitcher. This, where you're basically gloating, was a totally different philosophy, and that relaxed me. So that hearing him and his joy and going, oh, he's never called one of these before, I'm going to lean into that joy, and that is going to bring me into the 9th inning. And then the story afterward, I interviewed the starting pitcher, number 40, Jake Garland, the next day. And after our interview, we were just hanging out on the dugout railing. And you and I have chatted about how before an interview and after an interview is really important. And he said, did you say no hitter during the broadcast? You didn't say it right. You kept the jinx alive. And I was like, Jake, I not only said it, I said it with no balls and 2 strikes with 2 outs. I dropped it right there. I dropped it earlier. Adam dropped it earlier. And I taunted fate and said 1 out away from a no-hitter. And the biggest smile broke across his face, saying, that makes me happier that we threw the no-hitter. That makes me feel even better that we threw the no-hitter, because jinxes die. The players are the ones who do it. Whatever anyone else tried, it didn't matter. The players finished it off. So just seeing his joy and me saying, yeah, I actually did say no-hitter on the air, and him saying, and we still got it. Yeah. All right. Those are my initial thoughts. What are your thoughts?
Do you mind if I nitpick you on a few things?
Yes, please, because we want to get better from this.
Okay. So I did not know that it was a combined no-hitter until the end of the game, right? And then you said the names of the 3 pitchers who combined on it. So as we were listening there in the 9th inning, that's what I kept thinking. Was this starter, had he gone the distance? What was his pitch total at? If they allowed him to go further, all of these 2024 things that we have to talk about, right? Yes. Did they allow him to go further in this game than they normally would because there is a no-hitter on the line? And then, so we definitely knew that there was a no-hitter, but I was curious, how many walks, how many hit by pitches, how many errors, how many other base runners, just to reinforce this is not a perfect game?
That's really good, because I'm going no runs, no hits. But you need to know, is it 26 up and 26 down? Mm-hmm. So, yes, this pitcher came in with 2 outs in the 8th. And here's how we got to this point. And here's how many runners that they have. Those are excellent details to add in.
And again, I think that because the inning was so fast, what was it? The first pitch of the first batter, the second pitch of the second batter, and then
Yes.
was it a 5-pitch inning or a 6-pitch inning?
Yes. So we've got first pitch, then we've got second pitch, then we've got fourth pitch strikes out the third batter. But with the third batter, you're going strike one, strike two. This could end at any point. Foul ball, strike three.
Yeah, so that's a really quick inning. There's not a lot. I like how, number one, just it doesn't sound like the crowd was enormous, but the crowd that was there, they were really into it.
Allowed 3,000 people.
Okay, yeah. And so I think you did a good job of laying out, letting the kind of the crowd just like see that, hear that, kind of feel that. Those would be my main first thoughts. The other thought was we talked about setting the infield and the outfield again, right? And you really didn't have a chance to do that, right? Especially the way that you come back. And that's where I wanted to get into our next topic, which is some announcers have this luxury, some don't. And that is either I'm not going to go to a commercial break before the bottom of the ninth. And I think I've done that once. I think it was one of the times that the Isotopes took a combined no-hitter on the road into the bottom of the ninth inning. And I think there was once that I said to the board operator, because this was a radio game only, and I said, we're not going to commercial break. I want to spend the entire 90 seconds between innings. I don't want to lose anybody. Not that anyone would tune out at that point, but I want to make sure that I have 90 seconds to fully and completely set the tone of what's happened. That the Isotopes have never thrown a no-hitter before. Where we are, what the date is, who are the infielders, who are the outfielders, who are the pitchers that got us to this point. And so I was so proud of myself. And then first batter base hit. But I think that if you're doing an internet-only broadcast, I think the lesson here, though, is that if you are doing an internet-only broadcast, if you have the ability to tell your board operator, we're only going to do a 60-second commercial break instead of 90-second, or we're just going to blow off the entire commercial break. I think that if you have the ability to do that, do it, because you don't want to be rushing back from a commercial break, trying to set up all of these things as the first batter quickly flies out to right field to begin what turned out to be a no-hitter.
Yes, because we are trying to get in front of each pitch, right? We do not want to be behind during a pitch, and we especially don't want to be talking while a pitch is happening, because who knows what's going to happen during that. I think that's a great point. A pre-inning show, like we have the pre-game show, the pre-inning show to truly set the stage and say, let's take a breath. Here's what we have in front of us. Let's make sure that you know all the details. And now we enter the ninth. That's so good to prime everything. You're preheating the oven, baby.
Yeah. So, I've had these discussions with the board operator. We're very fortunate that we have really good board operators for our games. And so what I'll often say to the board operator, once we get through the fifth inning, I will say, make sure you get whatever the first hit is, or the first walk, or the first base runner for the postgame show. I want to make sure that we have that. And then what I'll say is, if we complete the sixth inning and we have yet to give up a hit, make a recording of that for the postgame show. I want the highlight of the last out of the sixth, of the last out of the seventh, of the last out of the eighth, because I feel like how you send it to break is vitally important for how you then come out of the break and how you set it up in the ninth inning. Again, I'm pontificating like I've called all these no-hitters. I've called zero. But I am a believer that it's not just what you do in the ninth, Jesse. It's how you build. And we both agree, after 5 innings, that's on no-hitter alert. It's how you build from the 6th to the 7th to the 8th to the 9th in order to get to the finish line.
Can I give you a brand new unwritten rule that I broke that I would actually like to establish now that I know a little better? And that is, give the catcher credit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The no-hitter belongs to the pitcher, but the no-hitter also belongs to the catcher. So make sure, as you're naming the pitcher, parentheses pitchers, make sure that you also name that catcher. That's imperative.
Yeah. And I think that that's, again, something where if the inning goes along longer than it did, then it's something that you could just more naturally do. I like to think if it's just a really good pitching performance, regardless of whether it's a no-hitter or not, then there's usually a time that I want to make sure that I give a shout out to the catcher at some point, or perhaps at some point I'll say, let's say the catcher's last name is Johnson. I'll say, Johnson sets up an inside target or an outside target, or something along that. Or, maybe the pitcher looks in for the sign, or I guess nowadays the pitcher listens for the sign, gets it from his catcher Johnson, like whatever you want to use as a way of those short Bill King phrases that add names and depth to your ninth inning.
To finish it, I said, it's over. I then waited, and then I said, he completes the 4th no-hitter in franchise history. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked that it was just a punctuation, right? It's over. I like that you immediately said that it was the 4th no-hitter. Yeah, I mean, I think that, put it this way, I didn't think that you tried too hard.
Which that had been my worry from the last one. And so for yours, and this is where we get back to who is the no-hitter for and how are you celebrating it? I think you have to make sure that your philosophy is right and that your audience is right.
I know that I've thought about what would I say if there was ever a no-hitter at Isotopes Park, right? And I think about what Vin Scully said when Hideo Nomo threw the first no-hitter at Coors Field. And it was something like, they said it could never be done, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of time thinking about, what would I say? How would I capture the moment that a no-hitter has been thrown at the most offensive-friendly ballpark in the United States of America, right? Like, what would I say? And I've thought about it a lot. And, I know that I would want to say what the altitude is. I would want to say that there has never been a no-hitter in this ballpark before. I would want to say that there's never been anyone even take a no-hitter into the 9th inning. And I want to make sure that I would have my years down. And I know that in the process of doing all of that, I would have to constantly keep reminding myself, nice and slow, talking ellipses.
I got one for you.
Okay.
Tacoma arrived at the pearly gates of the Albuquerque hitter's heaven, but this pitcher stood in front and said no.
That's something Vin could do. That's not something you and I could do.
You just got to get the metaphor right.
Right. Yeah. And I've thought about New Mexico's slogan is the land of enchantment. And I would think about, what an enchanting evening for blah, blah, blah. But then you don't want to be too hokey either. Right.
No.
And that's why I like to go back to yours. I like that you capture the moment without going over the top. Right. I mean, this was a no-hitter. These are rare, but this was a combined no-hitter. Right. This wasn't a no-hitter that clinched something. Right. This wasn't against the 1927 Yankees. Right. Like I feel like your energy captured something that is rare, something that all of these pitchers and these players behind them should be extremely proud of. But it was not an over the top screaming like, where you're like, dial it down, bro.
Yes. Find that medium and understand it. And also transport yourself back to you being a kid, watching those no-hitters, watching in your living room or watching from the ballpark. And then you just get to describe how cool it all is. You come back to that feeling of, this is a special night. And here's why. Here's the main ideas. And now let's just soak all of this in. And maybe if you're Vin and it's Valenzuela, you throw your sombrero in the air.
My final question for you would be, once you were in the 9th inning, in terms of like your notes, your laptop, like all these other things that we have around us, like describe for me like what your focus was, what you were looking at, what you were thinking and processing.
The field. So early in the game, I watch TrackMan. I will see, is a pitch in the strike zone? I want to be able to share with the listener, here's what somebody's fastball is. In that 9th inning, attention was fully focused on the field. And that was all that mattered. Just making sure that I was ready for every single pitch and that I described what I saw. So I've got the monitor next to me to help supply the pictures. Should I need to put captions with the pictures? But a lot of everything else, the phone, the computer, all those other things that some people might call distractions, but for me, I need to be checking my emails because we're so interactive, or I need to be making sure about this, about that. I've got this screen over here, this screen over here. Let's watch this next pitch to see if they can break up the no-hitter or if he'll draw another out closer. It's just the diamond.
Yeah. Bravo. Well done.
Hey, thank you for talking this all out. How to finish a no-hitter. Number one, you need to get a pitcher in front of you, right? Ingredients if we're cooking in a kitchen. Find a pitcher or pitchers who are on that day. Find a group of defenders who are ready to step up. Because let me add in this last detail. When I asked the starting pitcher, let's talk about what made this all special. He said something that he noticed was as the game went on, the defenders all sharpened behind him, that they stepped up too. So for you and me, we want to make sure that when this moment arrives and you see, does the pitcher step up to meet it? Do the defenders step up to meet the moment? Does the broadcaster step up to meet the moment? Because this is a moment that you want to be in position to call.
This has been Crafting the Call. For Jesse Goldberg-Strassler of the Lansing Lugnuts, he of multiple no-hitters. I'm Josh Suchon of the Albuquerque Isotopes with a big 0 for no-hitters. Thank you for watching Crafting the Call. We'll talk to you again next week.